right now. And I think we're all set. We've got no one's on the, yeah, I think we're in good shape. No one's waiting for me.
All right. So I'm going to call to order the Hopkinton Building Committee meeting at 4:33. We are operating under the Governor's Emergency Executive Order, in which we've posted this meeting in multiple locations, and minutes will be taken and posted later. And this video will also be posted in in another location on our website for the community to be informed. Potentially, this could be our last meeting remotely. We'll see how things go, but other than that, we got quite a bit to do. First, thank you everyone for coming today. We have the potential for maybe losing power based on the weather outside, so hopefully it doesn't happen and we can get through this meeting, because we have quite a bit we need to get through. So I thank you all for coming and joining us today. With that, I want to say thank you everyone for the last month. We've had a lot to do with the building facility project. You know, we started doing some stuff inside the schools, our roofs and everything. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been working very hard and getting that going. It's been a great thing to see, and I appreciate everyone's time and patience on that. So the first thing for today is an approval of 2 sets of minutes that was in our folders. If I could have a motion for the minutes of June 2nd, please.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Perfect. And we'll do a brief roll call. Mr. Chamberlain.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mrs. Clock. Ms. Clock.
Yes.
Ms. Gagnon.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
And Jay.
Yes.
And Norm Goupel's a yes. I'd like to take a motion for an approval of our minutes of 7/7, please.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Why don't we do the same roll call that we did? So Steve.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
And Norm. Perfect. Great, guys. Thank you very much. So the next thing on our agenda to discuss today is the review bids and the results, calendar, costing, and other documents from H.L. Turner and BPS since our last meeting. Which one of you would like to start off with any additional information that you can share today?
Mr. Goupel, I'm going to bump Gordon up.
Oh, hi.
Gordon was on the phone. I had to check his phone number to make sure it was all. I'm just kidding. So I think Gordon, is that you?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know I am finally on. Sorry.
No problem. I apologize, Mr. Goupel. Just wanted to slide that in.
No, that's totally great. Why don't we start with Gordon? We're on the item right now to discuss any additional information for the bid, calendar, and costing, and any other documents from H.L. Turner or BPS yourself. Why don't we just go around with the 3 parties and see what we can share to start?
Sure, and why don't we have, I think BPS, you can bring us up to date. You have all the bids in now, and where are we at?
So on Harold Martin School, would you like to talk about that?
Sure.
So we are going through now making bid recommendations at Harold Martin. We have been distributing those to the team for their review and comment if they've had any, and we're beginning to write contracts. And have a groundbreaking on Monday. I hope I'm not talking out of school there. And we'll be setting up construction fencing and beginning site work and concrete work as early as next week. We'll be breaking ground.
Awesome.
So it's very, very exciting part of the project when we break ground and begin additions.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are looking forward to that. Any additional information you want to share, Barry? I know we've been meeting on a weekly basis to discuss, you know, difference of anything you want to bring for an update.
Or do you want me to update where we are on the other schools schedule-wise and what's going on? Do you want me to get into that?
Sure. That fall under calendar. Let's go for it.
Okay, terrific. At Maple Street School, we are working on the bathroom renovations. Those are coming along in great shape. Epoxy floors are being installed, will be completed this week. The handicap ramp, foundation, footings and walls have been poured. Backfill was completed today, and they came in and started doing the edge forming for the concrete surface for the ramp. We will have one of your local folks, Multi-Weld, he will be coming over and measuring for railings and getting those in fabrication. And we've done the prep work on the roof to raise the roof where it needs a little height adjustment because of the new ramp height, if that makes sense. The roof has to come up a little bit to allow walking clearances on the new ramp. Over at the middle high school, bathroom renovations are well underway. Plumbing rough is complete and will be complete this week. Up on the 5th floor, the 3 classrooms that are becoming 2 classrooms, a conference room, and a corridor to the elevator. Those are framed drywall tops are being installed as we speak, and electrical rough is ongoing in that area. Plumbing rough also in the bathrooms is now complete. Roofing is well underway. A lot of the new roof has been put down. We spoke of some areas where some of the metal roofing was causing leaks and concerns. On the hips, that has been addressed, so we're excited to see not this amount of rain, but it is going to be a good test to see if those areas have been properly corrected, so you'll have no more issues there. So that in a nutshell is where we are on the 2 schools.
That's great to hear. We haven't released our back to school plan, but the plan is if students are going back, we'll be out of that way. There'll be no issues with anything going in our schools that you can foresee.
No, we are planning on you opening up, and we are going to be demobilizing out of those 2 schools and handing you over some shiny new restrooms and other things, a couple classrooms. So we're excited about that. Hopefully the staff and students will find the changes noticeable. I believe they will.
And if we decide to alter a schedule or something like that, you guys could take advantage of open windows, potentially, if something was to change down the road?
Yeah, we'll stay in contact and keep an ear to the ground on what you folks are thinking and try to anticipate any additional time we give in that space. All that will help reduce the amount of pressure on the following summer schedule and also get you, areas in your school completed earlier, which is a win-win. If we can reduce time and schedule, that's terrific news for everyone.
Awesome. Does anyone here have any questions for BPS based on any of the information you just heard? All right, perfect. Doug, I'm going to hand it over to you to share some great information with the committee.
Pretty much what I do now is facilitate any needs that or clarifications that BPS has in construction, and coordinating drawings and product submittals and things like that. So any questions they have about how things should fit, or if something's not exactly in the field as we anticipated, that's mainly what I do now.
Yeah.
And we've just been progressing along with that. So
you've been overseeing what they've been doing, and I got to see some of your work last week with the ramp. It looked great.
Yeah.
Steve gave me a little tour on that. Gordon, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I just, because we're going to be going into budget things later, let me just summate that one more time for the group, how we are budget-wise. We've had the 3 bids come in, and when we had the 3 bids come in plus add the owner soft costs, we had about $290,000 of, quote, extra money, if you will, and you folks at the school board committed $285 of that for the sprinkler. So we are even as far as the money being spent. What we now have as discretionary money will be two things. One is the contingency, and under construction contingency on BPS's part, we have about $215,000, and on the owner's side, we have $275,000. So we also have $20,000 in the sprinkler as a contingency. So we have about $510,000 of discretionary dollars. Now, those are going to get eaten up along the way with unforeseen things or new things that come along. But we are, in other words, we're on the right side of the dirt, if you will. So for this committee, as you go in to make your decisions, that's what our bucket of money looks like, is we are right on the budget. And when we say right on the budget, that means we have 510 in contingency. Some of the things we're looking at on our end are ways, are things that haven't been identified or that are going to be coming up that we can save money, and others that are going to spend money. So ways to save money, I'm working with BPS right now. They are carrying a figure for cabinetry, and we're making good strides with your state of New Hampshire Corrections Department to possibly have them do the cabinetry. And if they do the cabinetry, that will save us. We don't know how much yet, but that would be money that would get freed up. That typically is considerable. I mean, that could be 30% of what we've set aside, which is about $300,000. So we're not ready to say it yet, but we're hoping that we free up a considerable amount of money by having your corrections department do the cabinetry. On the other side of that, there was one glitch this week that the FM radios for the classrooms, you've got 70 classrooms that need FM radios in it. That's where the teacher would use a PA system to talk to their students, and as well as those in a special way that have hearing impaired, but it's for all students in general. And that's $100,000 that we hadn't carried anywhere. So once in a while, there's a negative that goes against it. But you'll have time to talk about all these later. I just wanted to give you a summation of where we're at.
Perfect. That's definitely something we're going to be talking about just in a little bit. So thank you, Gordon, very much for that. One thing real quick, I definitely want to say thank you to the Hopkinton School Board and Steve for proceeding forward with the fire suppression. I think that's something that this town's really been asking us for, since this project started, and for us to put it into this project, I think at a very reasonable cost, I think is great. And I just wanted to say thank you to the school board and to this town and to this committee for coming up with a good plan, and also to take advantage of a grant from the state of New Hampshire that I think is a win-win for everybody. I guess, Barry, real quickly, in one of our meetings, you mentioned the lead time was substantially long on which part of the suppression part. Was it the cistern or the pump? Which one was it? I just wanted to kind of get a little overview on that real quick.
That would be the fire pump.
The fire pump, okay.
The fire pump. Fire pumps are a special order. They're not a shelf item.
Okay.
So they are made after a specific design. So you have to go through the submittal process, get the engineers to approve that, and then release that. And generally that's approximately 12 weeks of manufacturing time before it would ship to the school.
And that's why we had to kind of jump through little hoops to have the school board approve fire suppression for this specific reason.
Time is of the essence is one of the issues.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any questions for BPS, Gordon, or Doug?
Again, just to help the committee understand, by doing that, the $285,000 price on fire suppression, you'll actually be getting a $60,000 grant. We haven't counted that anywhere yet. We're not trying to count money too soon, but these are the little pots of money that we see opening up. So by the board voting that, we now can meet our deadline and get our $60,000.
Yep. And we'll definitely be able to use that in multiple phases in this project. For example, it could be FM. Thank you, guys. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to discuss our financial report.
Sure. In the Google Drive is the financial. If you look from the last meeting, there hasn't really been a lot of expenses incurred yet. since our last one. One thing just to make note of is that Gordon and I really need to come down with, because this doesn't math right. It maths right if you add up all the numbers, but what it doesn't do is it comes up more than actually what our bond is, which will not happen.
Yeah.
So Gordon, at some point, you and I need to kind of touch base on this to get that all narrowed up correctly, because I subtracted the construction manager, the BPS amount from the bottom area kind of as the item, but it still doesn't come up right. Other than that, the only other thing to bring up is that next week is when the bond funds will be coming into the district. So I think it's the 11th or the 12th, one or the other, somewhere in that area.
And then you'll basically have to do like a journal entry to move the money from how we've been posting it on the books.
Well, I think what happens is I have had to give Renell, our bond counsel, copies of every single invoice that we've had to pay so far. So I think they actually give the district a check for that amount.
Got it.
And then I think what they do is they put the balance in our bond account, because it's only going to be used for the bond. So, and then we'll have to do probably monthly transfers from one account to the other.
And Michelle, you've done just a great job with that. For us having to do so much work and pay in advance without having funds, I just want to say, great job keeping track of all of it and being really clear and transparent on what we've had to do. And now that we're getting the proceeds, you can kind of breathe a little bit maybe and not be stressing a little bit. So I just want to say great job with that.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any
And
questions?
Michelle, I don't think this committee has put in their minutes what you were able to negotiate for a interest rate. When we last met, it was due in, but I think we probably want to put in our minutes what you were able to accomplish. Right?
Sure. Honestly, I thought we had, but maybe we haven't. So, I'm sorry. You guys are going to have to refresh me on the amount, because
1.76 true
thank
interest.
you. I have too many numbers in my head because I'm still dealing with auditors. So
Yeah, the true interest cost was 1.76%, which is great. And Michelle, we're one stage of the finish line is actually when we receive those funds next week. That's a big day. That's a big day. And I'm glad. I was last week the board came in and signed all the documents, and they wanted to make sure they weren't liable for no, I'm just kidding, but it was this is good stuff. So thanks, Michelle, and thanks everybody. I'll be glad to have those funds in-house.
And the next inquiry for our bond run would have to be March, potentially, would be the second half of the bond, Michelle?
So we have to talk about that, because if it all depends on lots of different things. What I mean by that is, if for some reason the buildings are closed for a period of time and we want to pick up speed, then that means we're going to be incurring expenses probably faster than what we will have the funds for, which might mean we have to go for the January run. So it's just something for us to keep in the back of our head, that how we go about this, because we were able to do this first part because it really wasn't a lot of money of the project, but as we get further along, it's going to be more dollars, and I don't know how we would have the funds. If we didn't have, we could certainly go out for a band, and we could do it that way. We're just going to have to monitor and figure it out as it gets closer. It's also going to affect us with our budget process for the 2021 year, so we'll all be right on it. So if it's the January one, it's even sooner. So
when would we have to apply for January funds, right? Is what you're talking about? Is that where you're?
I want to say October.
So, I would say we get this budget. How about I see what the budget is, and then we may have to have a discussion in the finance committee or this committee, and then we just got to make sure that before the board agrees on some things that we can give them their options of what's going to happen, just so we're transparent and clear with giving Steve direction and everybody. But that's very good. That's a very good point that Steve, we need to make a note of to discuss. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Michelle. That's a good
You're welcome.
point. Does anyone have any questions about the financial report? No one's been blown away yet? That's good. Awesome. All right, next on our agenda is prioritizing the alternatives. And, you know, of course, the big ticket was fire suppression was our first one. And we've got a list that was in our packet that gave us a feel for potentially what else we can look at. I think it's important in order to get a sense of where this committee feels, where we should be looking at our attention. I think it's important to hear from our leadership and hear from our superintendent where they feel that BPS and H.L. Turner and Gordon should be looking at regarding the direction of alternatives. And obviously the most important one is the FM situation that Gordon alluded to. So I'll let whom would like to take over to discuss this.
Sure. Thanks. I'll just start it off. And Barrett and Doug, I don't know what kind of form that you need the results of this discussion. We did have a discussion as a leadership team today. Just reviewed Doug's list of adults. Is it just you just need a sense of where we're at on what the top items are? Does that help you as we move forward? Is that what you're looking for as an outcome?
Without a doubt, just a sense what you folks are thinking. It's very fluid. I understand that, and my only concern is I don't want to go by a deadline. We don't want to be in the place where you say, "Hey, we'd like to do this now," and I say, "Well, we've gone past that point, and now it's not the same price, or it's very difficult to do." I just want to stay in tune with what you folks are thinking and wishing for. Make sure we all stay on the same page.
So as Norm alluded to, and Jay talked about, so as part of our one of our subcommittees that as we developed this plan a long time ago was student services and how can we adapt our buildings and universal access. And beyond, we're thrilled with the ramp. We're thrilled at what we're doing with the elevator. You know, we didn't hit all the change in interest at the high school, but one of the means that we were trying to provide universal design or universal access was in the FM systems. So as Gordon, you did a great job explaining the importance, and that is something that impacts all kids in every classroom in the district. And it was something that we, the board that passed the building project and the building committees prior felt that was a priority. So I think to the top of the list, just committing, just fulfilling that commitment that we've made, something that benefits all kids would be the priority. And I think we felt that as a district leadership team today as well. Amy's having a very special day with her daughter, is getting her braces off. So that's a big day. I remember that day in my family. So she texted me, I'll just start with Maple and then we'll head to the other schools. So when Amy takes a look, and I really do put a lot of faith and judgment in all our building level administrators, they know the buildings very well, they know their priorities, and they know the struggles that are the barriers that the building puts in front of them. So for Amy Barrett and Maple Street, the adult of the computer lab renovation really is the priority. If we could fit that, how that provides more flexibility in her scheduling and more meets the needs of kids. One thing that you'll hear from everyone, but it's just difficult where it is on the priorities. We're really excited about what Doug and the team has put forward as possible flooring. So if we can expand any flooring at Maple, I know she'd appreciate that. And the other piece that we spent some time talking today about a priority at many of our schools, because we've heard loud and clear and we truly want for long term, no one wants to be here for any leaks in the future, not just right away, but we would like them to outlast us all, is there was a number of adults dealing with the skylights and just making sure that we can keep a tight envelope. But for Amy, it was computer lab, some flooring, and making sure that we are taking a look at the skylights, because Doug put a few of those in our buildings. So I think that's where, does that help you, Barrett, just taking a look at the Maple Street?
Yeah, it's great how you've broken it down. I appreciate that. In skylights, that issue was it'd be nice to have new skylights, obviously, but more importantly was leaking.
We all want to make sure, and Doug, you wrote the ad also. I don't know if it was connected to leaks or just connected to long-term planning, but we've heard loud and clear, we want to make sure these buildings are tight.
It was connected to replacement of the skylights themselves because they're deteriorating and the associated flashing. But if you can't absorb the cost of replacing the skylights, then Barry and I can work together to try to solve some of the flashing issues if we do a little more investigation.
Yeah, terrific, Doug. Thank you. That's what I was curious, if it was a flashing issue and the skylights are getting old, or if the skylights were leaking and then they just have to be replaced. So yeah, we'll certainly address all leaks, all projects, and address any flashing issues to make sure when we leave your community that your roofs are tight.
And we do understand it's something that Jay's reiterated. We're still looking at this as approaching this as a holistic part of the project. We're going to break them down by building, but we understand that, you know, any savings at Maple doesn't have to go just to Maple. Any savings at Harold doesn't go to Harold. It's a holistic approach. And so it's for the first stage of this, we're looking at FM systems and then the Maple. Bill, you want to talk next about your priorities as the building leader for Harold?
Sure. I'll emphasize fire suppression. I'm right with everybody else on that being number one. I've been hearing about that for 20 years. And FM system as well. That is, you know, pedagogically really important for little guys. So after that, you know, I talked to Doug a little bit today. I think, you know, the cost of these varies so much, so it's difficult to prioritize. I think the nurses suite, or I hate to use that word suite, sounds too expensive. The nurses area would be next, but I also really honor as Steve said, the carpet replacement. I think that's so important over time, and the cost of that is not nearly as great. Parking would be something that, you know, I think we're only talking, what, Doug, like 17 spaces, something like that, but that might make a real difference as we grow. And I'm not sure where we're going to put people if we don't add, you know, at least something like 20 spaces. And of course, we've been talking a lot about the multi-purpose room. You know, that's going to run over 200K. I think if we win the lottery, I'd love to put that towards that section. But honestly, after spending money on the fire suppression and the sort of surprise cost of the FM system, I just can't imagine the multi-purpose room happening. But, you know, that would be, from a schedule purpose, if that's really important, because it would keep me from having to do phys ed and lunch in the same spot. But again, I don't see how that is going to happen. But you know, in terms of what I'd love to have, a dream to have, it would be there. But I also, as a couple of my colleagues said today, I think, you know, Harold Martin's getting a lot, and I have to be careful not to be greedy. So nurses suite, carpet, parking, those would be my priorities after fire suppression.
Doug, could you give me a little bit of a refresher what you would do with the nurses suite a little bit? I forget from the drawings, because I know it's a very, very small area, and it's something. What is it you were looking to do with that?
Sorry, can I have screen control?
Yeah, I think I let anybody do it, Doug. You should be okay.
Okay.
If not, let me know if you have a barrier.
See that?
It's working. Yep, working.
Okay. For some reason, you all disappeared on me. Hold on a second. Okay, there you are. So as far as the nurses suite, what I was trying to illustrate this to Bill a little earlier, because he called me he had some questions. So what we did at the last minute was, because we were concerned about cost on the project, is we just drew a box around the nurses suite, and we said, pull this out of the cost so that we don't go over on the rest of the project. But basically, this is the original configuration of the main office now. This is Bill's office. The nurse is using this office. She has some equipment back here. She has cots here and the restroom here. And then this is the office manager here. You have your fire alarm panel right here, and then a little bit of, then the copier back here. What we've said is that if we couldn't afford to reconfigure it as here, so restroom, storage, shower, and sorry, this is main office restroom, and then we had a corridor going into the back of the guidance office here, so that kids would come in the back here to the guidance office, but if any visitors need to come in the guidance, they come in through the main office. And then the kids don't have to go through the main office to go to the guidance office. So we reconfigured that. And then this is the staff restroom associated with the main office. So this space here is actually the nurse's suite right here. So, and what we did there is we provided a new restroom, a waiting area, a private office, because there are confidentiality issues.
Yeah.
And then we have a shower here in case anybody has any accidents or needs a shower. And we have a nurse's storage area here, and then 3-cot area here, which might turn into 2-cot with COVID. So that's the added cost, which came up to, so that number, that alternate had a number of 146,000 associated with it. In doing that box, what I was trying to illustrate to Bill this afternoon is we probably leave all this the same or reconfigure it in a minor way if the nurse needs, you know, a door relocation changed or something like that. We'd reconfigure it, but we should create this staff restroom and this rear way into the guidance office. So there will be a little bit of cost associated with that, but that was the goal. It was to throw the costs on that nurse's suite and see what it came out as, just to keep us from going over. So I don't know if that explains everything to everybody.
It just looks, it looks very congested. Bill, do you find it very congested with a lot of students going there, especially during free season?
Yeah, it's going to be, assuming we go back in some way this year, it's going to be, one of my biggest concerns is finding a holding place for kids who show symptoms. We'll have to reconfigure some other space to make that happen.
Steve, what's your thoughts about the nurses station? I mean, I know we have a lot of alternates, but what's your thoughts?
I think Doug hit it very well, that we do need the restroom, and we need that back entrance for sure. And then beyond that, I think there is some minor stuff that we could do, but that's going to be increased space, and that's going to be designated space. So that in itself is a significant improvement. But I think what Doug put in red as alt number 1, I don't know if we could function without that staff and that back entrance. So, but I think everything else we probably could do. But having in this world, having a strong, redesigned, effective nursing station, health related, I don't think, I think that because it's student and it's health related, I think that probably goes up the list somewhere.
Yeah, especially with what we're going through right now, it kind of makes me think, and I'm only one board member, just to kind of maybe keep that up there on the list of as we go through. To think about. Jay, just your thoughts. Am I putting too much energy into something like this?
No, I think you're right, Norman. The other thought that crossed my mind, and I'm fairly certain that Steve is going to shoot this right down, but there may be, if not now, maybe in the future, some opportunities for grant funding, because this, I think, without any exaggeration, could be clearly noted as a COVID-related expense. I don't know, by the time we went through that whole process, I think we'd be too far into the project. I think we're going to need to decide before we could get any kind of assurance on that. But I think there would be the possibility for a potential reimbursement, somewhere down the road for this, because this clearly has ramifications as far as isolation. A youngster comes into the school, symptoms don't get caught until they get to the building. They need to go someplace where they could be isolated from their peers until arrangements could be made. So that would fall, I think, clearly on that side. But if there's no money, there's no money. But I don't think it would be a hard lift to make this something that we could seek reimbursement for at some point.
Barry, is it possible for us to keep potentially on track with this plan if we go down that road, and potentially to see where we are with potential grants and funding for this without losing the scope of the project?
I'm not sure I understand your question. I'm sorry.
My question is, are we able to proceed maybe like as in this plan, the design, if the board decided to go with it without losing anything on the timetable? What I'm saying is that we can submit for it later potentially. Is there a specific time?
Barry, I think what he's asking is,
Yeah.
does, and to me, it seems like this can be isolated from the rest of the project, except where we're connecting onto the exterior, with the restroom and the corridor.
Yeah, Doug, I agree with you. I think that could
Yeah.
be isolated, or it's summer work, and I hate burdening the summer
The
any
other
more than we already have. So, but I
The
think it could be isolated, keeping us completely separated from staff and students, which is how we have to proceed.
Yeah, the
So
other thing I can do is take a harder look at preserving partitions and walls where they are now, and trying to create what this does for us, and see if there's a way I can play with this simply and accomplish the same thing. But I could take a harder look at it and try to do that. So.
Okay. Norm, did that
Yes.
answer your question? Probably not really, right?
No, it was perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we don't miss out on an opportunity. Like if we get COVID money down the road, I just didn't want to hear from us saying, no, we can't go back and do this because we've moved on.
I think you can, because
Okay.
it's pretty much standalone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just standalone, typical interior
Yeah.
renovation. The only thing that could be affected is drainage from restrooms, but we're linking into other stuff anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think you have some flexibility there, Norm, to answer your question.
All right, that's great. I definitely would like to keep a pulse on that, especially with what's going on. And Doug, happy to see later down the road if you come up with anything cost effective, if it helps a little bit too. That'd be great. But I also want to make sure Steve's comfortable with us, looking at something like that, and Bill. I'm gonna, Steve, turn over to Chris for some comments on the high school. Chris.
Thanks, Norm. I guess for us, the priorities on the alt list, there's a clear number one for me. It's the music room enlargement piece. We have a music program that's growing. We've been very fortunate to have Bridget as a music teacher who has really worked hard to expand that program, and kids are really enjoying music in our schools. So and I say schools because I think we have a strong music program even at the elementary levels, and that helps to feed a strong high school program. So it wouldn't surprise me whether or not we see a rise in our community population, that we see increased participation in our band and chorus. So and right now, anyone that's walked that building, try to fit 40 kids or just above 40 kids with instruments in the space that's considered the band room. It's nearly impossible. It's not safe. If we ever had to evacuate, you have to move around all these instruments to do so. So more space is certainly needed in that area. If there was any way to do that, that's our top priority. But knowing that that's a larger type of project, I'm not sure that would leave room much for anything else in regards to anything else on the alt list for the high school, middle high school. But carpet flooring replacement would be number two, I think, for me. And then looking at we look at the stair tread replacement. Getting that.
Was Chris breaking up or is it me?
I think it was Chris a little bit.
Okay.
What part did you not get?
Probably the last 14
Stair
seconds.
treads. Can you repeat the stair tread, Chris?
The stair tread was like number 3 for me. That's something that Doug and I had talked about when we were walking the building. Again, just if we had a chance to replace those stair treads to something a little bit more safe. I don't know how long they've been there, but they've been there a while.
Chris, would you lump the media center carpet in with the rest of the building carpet?
I would if we can, yeah, because but that's a larger area.
Right.
But if we, I think that would make sense.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris, very much. Seems like we have a pretty short list. I want to go to Jay, and I wanted to check in with Jay a little bit. Jay, you've been at the beginning of this project, you and Steve. Is there anything that struck you as something that you'd be interested in too?
No, I think, but thanks for asking, Norm. I think at this point, it's, I think the conversation needs to be carried by the educators.
Okay.
As a facilities person, a lot of the project was put together with the deferred maintenance in mind. A couple points that I think we want to make is number one, because of the fine work by Doug and BPS, we have good numbers now for our CIP program, which I know Steve and the board subcommittee is working on. So just because we don't get to these in this project doesn't mean that we're not going to get to them at some point. So I think that's important, and I think we want to keep that in mind. Understanding that there are projects that will be better to do now than later, but these are discussions that I think we can have. I think the big point I want to make, and this is to go back to the FM, is I don't consider the FM an ad alt. That was something that was in the original project.
Yep.
And I'll take as much responsibility as anybody else. It fell through the cracks and we didn't catch it. I think that needs to go back in. I don't know whether the conversation would be any different if we were having this before the sprinkler system conversation, but I agree with Steve that, we owe it to not just the people that may have hearing impairments, but I think it's going to be a benefit to a lot of other kids that may have other learning needs to have that FM in there. So I think we need to look at the FM at the top of the list, but not necessarily as an add-all. Just at this point, it's kind of into the contingency anyway, but it's something that should have been in the original scope that we missed first time around. I think that needs to go back in. But beyond that, I defer to the educators on this. As Steve said, they're the professionals that know what needs to be done here, and I haven't heard anything that would make me scratch my head. I think they're all good suggestions.
Thanks, Jay. For me, 100% goal of the bond is to give what the taxpayers voted for, and that is everything that was in that bond. And in that bond was the FM discussion. So for me, we have the extra necessity to do that, correct? From what I'm hearing from you guys, we just kind of.
I think we hope to. I think it's a good place right now, but I think we'll keep it in front of the.
Okay, because for me, it's important that we share with the board that that's something that we have to look at. But of anything on this whole scope of the project, that has to be one of the most important thing, and it's not an adult. And I agree with Jay on that. We need to make sure that gets in there. I would love to be able to help with the nurses, but I think I want to see through everything that's been voted on in the bond for the town. I think it's important that we do that. When do we get certainty that can happen? It doesn't need to go through the school board because it's something that was in the scope of the project. The board approved fire suppression, which was a significant adult, but based on the numbers that I'm hearing, 100,000 to do that, to be in the scope of the work, should not be an issue. Is that correct?
You mean, is that enough money to do it?
Are
Your
we,
question?
yeah, yes, based on the instructions of doing the scope of work for that project, it shouldn't be an issue putting FM radios, I'm sorry, FM into each classroom, correct?
Correct. Today, I was able to, based on yesterday's knowledge, I went out to your vendor and your instructor, Matt was a great help, Matt Stone. I talked to your vendor. She was able to whip up 3 different versions and just what I call back of the envelope. One version came in at 87,000, one came in at 97,000, the other at 111. So I think if we carry the 90,000, we will be fine. And as far as solidifying it, if you decide to solidify it right now, which is what I'm hearing you're saying, it's simply a matter on the sheet that I'm carrying, because this would be something that the owner would buy. I would just put the line item in there, 90,000 for FM, and we would adjust the contingency from 275. It would then become 185, and then it would be locked in, so there'd be no more wondering. There it would be.
I mean, I wanted to check with Steve on his pulse on that. You know, my impression is that it's our goal to fulfill the requested bond, and in the bond, it was exactly this, and this is not an alt that we should move forward with that as long as we are within the bond amount. Wouldn't you agree, Steve, or do you think this is something we need to go to the school board with?
No, I don't think we have to go to the school board because it was in the base bid, and I appreciate the enthusiasm and putting it in. I just, from our construction meetings, we're so early in the project, and I don't know if it gains us anything if we put it in now or if we put it in, but I just think we want to make sure that we can do what we need to do in the science labs and, in the other areas. So I think whether we mark it, I just want to, it's just everybody has said that we're only, a small percentage of this project in, and to reduce the contingency, owner's contingency that much, I don't know if we have to do that now or if we can just monitor it as we go. But I think this committee is pretty much unanimous that that is a priority.
Gordon, can we agree on that?
Yeah. No, I think it's just a matter of our paperwork. So you want it in, we'll put it in, and we've said that things are going to move from column to column. So
yeah.
We'll just put it in under the owner fit up. Now, one thing, while we're on a positive note with that, I talked with 2 other vendors today, is things are changing now with where some of your kids may be homeschooled, and some of this PA system stuff may actually want to tie into Zoom meetings and so forth. So now that you've committed to it, it doesn't mean that we're going to go out and buy it tomorrow. I think Matt needs to study it for a couple months and see how the winds are changing, because I think this whole idea of how a classroom is set up and how you're going to communicate is going to change with COVID, post-COVID. But that being said, it'll be some sort of an FM system, and let's put 90,000 aside for it. But I don't know that we know what it is yet.
That makes
I think
sense.
that's changing.
Perfect. And then I would say, once we get a little deeper into the project, we can look at these additional adults and have discussions on where we are throughout the project. Like Jay said, there may be potential for grants that we could help apply in this project that would help in the scope of the work. So, does anyone have any other? Whoops, sorry, Gordon.
From an adult, the only one I see that has some lead times that would make very nervous would be your carpet. Some of that stuff can have 2 and 3 month lead time. So that doesn't mean we need the answer now. I think that means we need the answer in January.
Okay.
Not now, but we can't.
Monday at 9 a.m. Steve sent out the invites yesterday. It will be live streamed. Rachel, I had a discussion with Rachel. Since we can't have the community come, Rachel will coordinate with Steve live streaming it on Facebook so the community can see the ceremony. And Steve will come up with a little agenda or a pamphlet for a few members there for the event. So I appreciate Rachel working with Steve on that to have that. Rachel, do you have any questions at all?
Just a reminder to everyone to please wear closed-toed shoes on the project site.
Perfect. And last thing that I wanted to talk to the board about, come in our next meeting, just in the back of your mind, I wanted to have a discussion on how we can kind of give more of an update to the community and what's going on with the project. I spoke to Rachel today a little bit about our communications, maybe on a website where we're able to share with the community and what's going on. And so between now and then, if you want to think a little bit of what we could do for the community, I have some community members who want to give some insight. But a lot of people in town are very excited about this project, and I want to be able to share with them what's going on with videos and perspectives from our leadership team and what's going on. So I look forward to doing that with you guys and come up with some idea for our next meeting. With that, I'm going to turn over to public comment. Does anyone here want to ask a question?
I'm glad I came back quick. I came back quick.
Yeah, you came back really good. It's pouring over here now.
Chris lost power. He didn't come back.
Well, we made it through the meeting, so we don't have any. I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to thank you all for all your hard work on this project, and I'll see you all Monday, and I look forward to you then, okay? All right, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.